Smith, and you're tuning in to Rolling Out.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Malik Brown, here for Rolling Out Health IQ. And today I have an amazing guest. Today I'm speaking with attorney Corey Minor Smith. Ms. Corey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Malik. It's a pleasure to join you today.
Definitely, it's a pleasure for you to be speaking with us today. Of course, this is Health IQ, and of course, we're in the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know you do a lot of things around mental health, mental illness, and things of that nature, and also an attorney as well. So glad to have this conversation with you. To start it off, I'd like to know, how did you get into, the realm of mental health and things of that nature?
Actually, it's from lived experience and learning about my mother, her behaviors, and ultimately a diagnosis. And so I've taken that lived experience and all that I have learned and try to help other families, particularly Black families, families of color, who may not know to recognize symptoms, may pass it off as something else, but ultimately letting people know that mental illness, and for sure severe mental illness, is real, and there is treatment and services available.
Definitely. And for you, you talk about your mom. How was that experience for you? And just growing up, and that process.
Well, it was very challenging. It still can be challenging. My mother is doing well, and we always appreciate the times that she's doing well. Individuals are able to live in recovery where they're engaged in treatment and services, but severe mental illness is something that doesn't just go away. And what I have learned is that it's best to try to be able to manage the symptoms. And everybody is different. Just because a person has the same diagnosis doesn't mean, they'll exhibit the same types of behaviors, but it's important to understand your loved one's behaviors and to help them to understand their behaviors, and knowing when it is time to seek treatment, or if they've never been on it, or if they're on it, to continue to engage in treatment, because ultimately we want them to have the highest quality of life possible.
Definitely agree. And when speaking about mental illness in families and things, how can one know, or kind of catch it behind in front before things get bad, or how can we kind of know when these things are starting to occur in our family members, in our close
like being proactive. So that's a great question, Malik. Really, we're aware of each other. Many times we're in the same households or in the same community. Most anybody in any given city, USA, may see that same person that's standing on the side of the street, and we may, just pass them off as whatever, however we may label them, or a person pushing a shopping cart down the street, and we may consider it full of junk, but those are their worldly treasures, their life possessions. What's important to know and understand is that if you believe something might be going on with your loved one, that you start doing research the types of things that you're observing with your loved one, whether it's the way that they're talking, the types of things that they're saying, the types of things that they're doing. And I just caution families to not just pass it off as, the person being on drugs or drinking too much, because that could very well be a factor. However, there could be more to it. And so I encourage people to research and to ask questions and to call like 1-800 numbers. There's so many available now, especially for our community. A lot of culturally competent counselors and mental health providers, and the resources are readily available for free. So with no shame, go out and research and find out more about your loved one's behaviors.
Definitely. I know you talked a little bit about, sometimes we may pin it on drugs or, things like that, but it kind of can be stress or things like that. And that's mental health. So, and I want to ask you, is there a difference between mental health and mental illness? Does mental health kind of lead into the mental illness? How are those two, kind of coincide?
Sure. And, you know, as we said at the beginning, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a doctor or a mental health professional. However, I speak from lived experience as well as my education, and all that I've learned throughout my graduate work, as well as through NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But I just want to say that sometimes words are used interchangeably, and it's important to understand anybody with a brain has mental health, right? We need to do all that we can to keep our whole bodies healthy, physical and mental. And so with saying that, mental health is applicable to everybody. Mental illness can be a line drawn in terms of having a diagnosis for a disorder, for example. And even more of a distinction is severe mental illness. Those are diagnoses that are severe mind alterations, such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And it's not limited to that, but just to give an example. So any one of us, just any given day, like you mentioned with stress, we have good stress, we have bad stress. It's about us knowing how to manage those things for ourselves, whether it's just knowing it's time to take a break, you know, having a moment of prayer, going out for a walk, looking at your diet. Our food choices impacts us mentally as well. So there's a lot of different aspects to it, but great question in terms of distinguishing.
Definitely. Thank you. And while you were dealing with with your mom's situation, how were some of the ways that you kind of coped with that, and kind of the resources that you reached out to help you?
Yeah, thank you so much. It started early, and actually I'm an only child, so it was just my mother and I when the symptoms became to the point that I didn't know what to do, and I had to call another family member. And ultimately, that's when we went to the emergency room and sought treatment. And that's when we also had the diagnosis. So it was an ongoing, as we go, learning experience. But one of the first things that connected me outside of my experience with my mother was when I went to college, and there was a TV movie on at that time, 1994, and it starred Diana Ross. It's called Out of Darkness. When I saw the previews for that TV movie, I was so connected to what I saw that I made sure I was in my dorm room to watch it, because I didn't have a VCR. So I had to make sure I was in there to watch it. And there were so many parallels, but Diana plays this character named Polly. And during the height of her medical school career, she started exhibiting symptoms of paranoia and delusions, things of that nature, things that I saw in my mother. So that's when I knew this is bigger than just me and my mom. And I wanted to know more. And as I've learned more, I found it important to share this information with other families so that we can help, reduce the stigma, talk about it more, learn more, and not be ashamed, so that we can help our loved ones live the highest quality of life possible.
And when dealing with mental health and mental illness, how important is the family in these situations? I mean, of course, we always, like you said, there are other ways. You can meditate, of course, talk to a therapist, but what is the importance of family when it comes to mental health and mental illness?
Many times family is all we have. Family is critical. And because family is so critical, they're also maybe the first ones to leave. Like they can't handle it. They can't take it. First of all, not understanding what's going on. Secondly, because it is overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. But what is important for families to know, especially if your immediate loved one, like a household member, immediate family member is experiencing or living with severe mental illness, that you don't have to do it alone. I know many times in the Black community, we want to keep it in the house. We don't want to talk about it, go to the altar and pray, and nothing against going to the church. The church is also very important in this whole, in our community and in addressing mental health in our community, and especially severe mental illness. But with all that being said, family members, it's important if they could take turns, create a system of respite where, one day is one family member's day to be responsible, it's somebody else's turn another day. Or you just split up the task, because it's a whole nother life involved in whatever that person's life needs. And so it's important that families try their hardest not to give up and to continue to rely on other resources without shame or guilt. Many of us don't want to think about like putting our loved one in a home or having them go to the hospital, but sometimes due to the severity of the behaviors, sometimes it's important to have those options available so that your loved one can be stabilized and again, be able to live on his or her own.
Definitely agree. And I know, over the past couple of weeks, I've talked to, other people that talk about mental health, and, they talk about the Black families and, some of the reasons why, they might not get help. And one of the reasons is, they don't have the resources, the funding, things of that nature. How can Black families have those type of resources, have those type of, opportunities like any other family when it comes to, trying to help with mental health and things of that nature, if you have any, tips?
Yeah, absolutely. I immediately think of a woman named Bebe Moore Campbell. She was a 3-time New York Times bestselling author, and she was a strong advocate for the National Alliance on Mental Illness and mental health awareness in the Black community and communities of color. She committed her life to helping us to know that mental illness is real and is something that we can learn more about and help our loved ones. And so with that being said, it's important that we make contact with organizations that are in our community, such as NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or Mental Health America. There are free resources within these organizations, or that these organizations provide, including calling 1-800 numbers. But one that I found to be very, very beneficial, and I know that Bebe Moore Campbell participated and also started the urban Los Angeles chapter of NAMI, but it's called the Family to Family Support Group. There's a peer-to-peer support group. There's a number of different types of groups that NAMI provides, and they're all for free. And then, with the pandemic, that didn't take away the need. If anything, it increased the need, right? So you had to pivot, provide opportunities online, because families, people with that are living with mental illness still need those services. So I encourage people, again, without shame. We have to, get rid of this stigma that's associated with mental health, because it is a 365 issue, a global issue. It does not discriminate, and any one of us can be impacted at any given time. And what better thing to know that there are resources that are available to you for free.
Definitely. And, of course, it is Mental Health Awareness Month, but like we talked shortly earlier, this is a conversation that needs to be had 365, 24/7, all the time, just not in May. And I know you also mentioned another awareness month in July. Could you talk to people about that as well?
Absolutely. As I just mentioned, Bebe Moore Campbell, it is named in her honor. This was something that was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives back in 2008, where July was declared to be Bebe Moore National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, there is a trend to try to change this to BIPOC, or people are already calling it BIPOC. Whether it is BIPOC, minority, I'm saying do not erase Bebe Moore Campbell's name. And just in her honor, and what the purpose of this month's designation was for, it was for Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And so it is in July, and it's important for communities to take that opportunity to learn more about their particular ethnic group or nationality and the services that are available for them. Specifically, not that we have to be exclusionary, but there are certain cultural things that are important to particular groups, and they want to make sure that whatever services that they're trying to consider are sensitive and incorporate their cultural beliefs, values, and thought processes.
Definitely. For you, of course, you're an attorney. So is there any correlation between you being an attorney and mental health? Did you kind of, or was it just kind of like, I just want to be an attorney? Like, how did that kind of go for you?
Yeah, actually, it was when I was younger, and because of some of the things that occurred when I was younger and due to my mother's health, she wasn't able to care for me. And I was in the court system. And the day that we had a hearing, I had to have a placement. My custody was going to be changed. I could no longer live with my mother. And so my father's mother agreed to take me in. I was so excited that day. Now, this wasn't necessarily a good thing, that why we were going to court, but I was so in awe of this court. And I wanted to know about it. I want to know about the person in the black robe, the people in the suits. What did they do? Unfortunately, on that day, we were never called into the courtroom, and they basically decided my life without us being in there. But that sparked my interest to learn more about the law and the legal system. And then later in high school, I had the opportunity to work in a summer program called Job and Training Partnership, where I was assigned to the local court. And at that point, I was able to work directly with judges in the judge's chamber, as well as all of the staff, learn the inner workings of the court. And I knew that was one of the 3 factors that led me to go to law school.
Love that. I love that. I love that. That's an amazing story. Amazing story. And definitely, I know I wanted to talk, about being a kid, and you talked about how you were in the system. But for maybe some kids, that could be traumatizing, or that could affect their mental health. But we don't know because they're young, and you really don't catch on to certain things, until you get older. But how do certain things like that affect mental health starting at such a young age?
Yes, that's a great question, Malik. And there are so many traumatic things that children are facing. We tend to not think about them as a factor, as a person that's in the household, but they're experiencing and observing things that we may think because we're shutting the door, they don't see. But I know I saw a lot that people thought I probably didn't see or hear. And where it exhibits is in school. So while the teachers may label this child as disruptive, or perhaps they're going to school without their homework, or perhaps they are hungry, but they're acting out because they're hungry and no one knows that, right? It's important for those who are caregivers of children, whether you're the parent or not. You could be a guidance counselor or a teacher that just takes that extra step to take students under your wing, to ensure that they're receiving their physical examinations, and not limiting those physical exams to just the physical body, but also mental health assessments. You can ask a pediatrician for a mental health assessment for your child. He or she may not be that young or too young to engage in that. Are alarming statistics, unfortunately, of young children, babies, toddlers, who exhibit mental health conditions at that early of an age.
That's amazing. That's crazy, man. Ooh. So for you, how does it feel to know that, you're one of the leaders of, of kind of, pushing this story forward and helping others around the world that may have dealt with the same thing that you were dealing with, or, dealing with it at different ages? How does it feel to know that you're in the front of all of this?
Well, I just appreciate any opportunity to share information, because I was just finding it. I was just stumbling across it. And what it led me to do is I developed this my go-to mental health guide, right? So all the things that I've learned over the years, starting with that movie, Out of Darkness, I created a mental health guide, and it includes movies that talk about or depict individuals with severe mental illness or mental health conditions, books, podcasts, apps, and also just other organizations that provide services online for free, small fee, whatever the case may be. So it's important that anytime I have the opportunity to share a platform like yours today, Malik, thank you so much, that we give valuable information, that I give valuable information. For example, there have been advocates who have worked extraordinarily hard to have 988, the new 3-digit number that people can call when there is a mental health crisis with their loved one or for themselves. So instead of calling 911, starting in July 16th of this year, 988 is to be available nationally by all cell phone carriers. And if your provider is T-Mobile, you may already have it. T-Mobile was the first to implement the 988 system and to have it available for their customers. So I encourage people to read more about 988 and know that they can use that, and it funnels them directly to the National Suicide Prevention Helpline.
Love that. I love that. I love that. How can we get this conversation to happen all the time instead of just in certain months? How can we better as a community get these conversations rolling and rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the church is our foundation, right? That's where we get our information. It has helped us through, times of enslavement. It helped us through times of the Reconstruction period, the Jim and Jane Crow period. It has been a staple in our community, a source of inspiration, a source of information that we need to help live the highest quality of life possible. So I encourage people to have these discussions in their church, have community meetings. Don't just limit it to your church members, open it up to others in the community, showing that the church is with this as well. Again, it doesn't make you less of a believer because you're doing more than praying, or you're not just leaving it at the altar. I believe that God doesn't give us more than we can bear. And I know we've all heard that, but more than we can bear in the sense that there are resources, free resources that are available in the community, and you don't have to bear it alone. So I believe the church is a start, and our schools having the information and resources available for our students, and in the workplace. We need to create cultures of care, cultures of sensitivity, and know and understand that employees have mental health conditions that they may be ashamed of. They don't want to exhibit certain types of behaviors because they want to keep their job. But at the same time, they may not know they can ask for a reasonable accommodation. See, that's where that lawyer thing kick in. Learn about these types of things that are available to you, that are a part of your rights in the employment place, in the schools, which also students can have reasonable accommodations, and in housing. If you're a renter, for example, reasonable accommodations may be available for you depending on whatever the circumstances may be. But what I encourage you to do is learn more.
Learn. That's the word right there. That's the word of the day. Miss Corey, for that person that sees their close one, their family member, their friend, struggling with mental health, what are 3 tips that you would give that person?
I have a AAA strategy, and that is to acknowledge, accept, and advocate. Acknowledge, as we talked about here today, that mental health, mental illness, severe mental illness is real. And know that your friend is not just acting out for attention, that your friend could very well have a mental health condition. Number 2, accept. You're accepting that your friend's behaviors are what they are, behaviors related to a mental health condition or severe mental illness, and it can be treated. And unfortunately, so many are living untreated. But when you accept, you can know that this person may never be who you expect them to be, because their behaviors may limit that opportunity in life. And number 3, advocate. As you acknowledge, as you accept, all of that is coupled with learning, because you're learning more. And you will be able to help your friend by advocating for your friend, speaking up for your friend, contacting organizations, contacting treatment providers on your friend's behalf, or at least having resources readily available at your fingertips like 988 if your friend's behaviors become uncontrollable, or at a point that they're a risk to themselves or others. You want ultimately for your friend to be safe, and you ultimately want everyone around your friend to be safe.
Thank you so much, Ms. Smith, for giving us all these tips, giving us a story. Thank you, because these are the type of stories that we need in the community, and we appreciate everything that you do. And I hope this continues to push forward and help other people and other families as well. Thank you so much. Before we go, I want to give you the time to let people know where they can find you on social media. If you have anything coming up, anything special, any events, this is your time to let the people know.
Well, thank you, Malik. I appreciate that. I do have my book. It is a motivational memoir, and it's used as a resource for families and friends that have a loved one living with severe mental illness. The foreword was written by Les Brown, and it is called #Driven. It's available on my website, CoreyEmpowers.com, CoreyEmpowers.com. You can also purchase it on Amazon. And people can find me on Instagram under Corey Empowers, as well as Facebook, Corey Empowers, and Twitter and LinkedIn. But ultimately, yeah, on all platforms, I like to share information about mental health, just trying to encourage people, because these are difficult times. You know, what just happened in Buffalo is unfortunately a historical occurrence in terms of it being a continuation of things that has happened in history against our community. And what I would like to share about that is the realness of secondary trauma. We may not know any of the individuals that are murdered on a daily basis, but repetitively seeing images like us does have an impact on us. It has an impact on our children, who we can't necessarily explain this stuff to. So it's important, again, that people take the time that they need to process this stuff, because it's difficult, right? And that they are able to go directly to resources that they can call in the midnight hour. You can pray in the midnight hour, but you can also call trained professionals that can talk you through some of the things that you may go through when your friends may not be available.
Definitely. And thank you for shouting your book out, because that's definitely another resource. And of course, all the numbers that we can call, of course, internet, all of that. And like you said, all of this stuff happening, I mean, it affects us on the outside. So I thank you so much for all of this. I really hope somebody sees this and, you know, is willing to help the next person, help their family member, help their close friend. This is definitely the conversations that we definitely need in the community. So thank you, Ms. Smith, for everything that you do.
Thank you, Malik. I appreciate your time, and thank you for your interest in increasing awareness about mental health and the importance of it in our community.
Always. It's our pleasure. Everybody, thank you so much for coming and listening to us. This is Rolling Out Health IQ with Malik Brown, with my special guest, attorney Corey Minor Smith, and we are